It's been a while since we discussed the most grotesque and foreboding bosses that video games have to offer, and to be honest, that's probably for the best. After all, there's only so much twisted depravity a healthy mind can take. As it's spooky season though, we thought we'd brave the shadowy recesses of game boss design once again, and unearth another 10 examples of unsettling entities and grotesque guardians for your morbid consideration. We've previously looked at disturbing bosses from the 16-bit and 8-bit console eras, and have also scratched the surface of more modern monstrosities. But there is such an array of unpleasantness out there that we're sure you'll find something to fear in this dectet of terror. Multiple console generations and graphical styles are represented, so there really should be something to suit everyone's taste. So pull that comfy blanket over yourself, lock all your doors and windows, and remember that things like this don't exist in real life. Probably. I'm Ashton from TripleJump, and here are 10 more of the most disturbing video game bosses of the 21st century. Number 10, Gaping Dragon, Dark Souls. Once again, we're starting strong with the undisputed experts in skin-crawling boss design From Software. For this list, we've chosen one of the most memorable boss encounters from Dark Souls, a hideous creature met in the depths, known only as the Gaping Dragon. Now, we know that dragons are supposed to be scary, but it's usually in a cool and majestic, tremble before my untold might and ferocity kind of way. This guy is just utterly unpleasant, and looks like the result of an unlikely mashup between the works of J.R.R. Tolkien and John Carpenter. Likely a descendant of the everlasting dragons, who once ruled the world during the Age of Ancients, this wretched lizard has been corrupted horribly, with an elongated bulbous torso and abdomen, and gleaming rust-coloured scales. Oh, and of course the big, toothy mouth that takes up most of its body. Did you happen to notice the mouth? This cavernous maw is lined with rows of twitching, grasping teeth, or at least exposed ribs that act as teeth, that are just quivering in anticipation of enveloping the chosen undead in their spiky embrace. The good news is, the Gaping Dragon is an optional boss, if you take the Master Key as your chosen gift in character creation. Let's all remember to do just that, shall we? Number 9, Mother, Binding of Isaac. Originally released in 2011, Bible story-inspired roguelike The Binding of Isaac tells the tale of Isaac, whose mother becomes compelled to sacrifice him, and so he escapes into her monster-filled basement, terrified and alone. The game takes the form of a top-down shooter with a grotesque, cartoony art style, and Isaac must survive countless blood-soaked encounters with nightmarish creatures and entities, many of which are representations of his less than pleasant childhood. This all comes to a big, bulging head when Isaac finally encounters his mother, or at least the physical representation of how Isaac feels about his mother, after she is introduced in the Binding of Isaac Repentance DLC. A gigantic undead abomination, this repulsive relative is covered in odd growths and likes to spit out spinning, slimy, unsightly masses as one of her many attacks. Not only is this boss visually repulsive, but the connotations behind it are equally so. To a small child, a mother should be a beacon of safety and unconditional love, but this mother shows exactly what she thinks of that when she spawns an army of crying kids to attack Isaac, only to violently slap them away when they reach her. There's no doubt about it, that is one mean mother. Number 8, Psychiatrist, Katana Zero. We're going to keep things 2D for now, with this entry from stylish cyberpunk samurai game Katana Zero. Whereas The Binding of Isaac wore its unsettling nature plainly, Katana Zero is, for the majority of its runtime, a sleek and cool action platformer with a futuristic neon-lit setting. Sure, it's bloody and violent, and the main character is clearly going through some stuff, but the game doesn't exactly scream body horror. That's why it's such a surprise when protagonist Subject Zero finally faces off against a psychiatrist in an unexpected secret boss fight. Subject Zero doesn't have a great relationship with his psychiatrist at the best of times, but this encounter takes things to a frankly unnecessary level. To begin with, the psychiatrist starts levitating and summoning huge grasping hands from the void, which is not the sort of behaviour you'd expect from a mental health professional, but things get a lot worse from there. After duplicating himself and the screen, and coalescing as a number of bloodshot eyeballs, the psychiatrist will eventually turn into this unholy amalgamation of messed up heads and discolored rose-coloured internal organs. Completely unexpected considering the rest of the game, this particular needle-wielding amorphous room-filling psychiatrist is surely going to leave Subject Zero needing more therapy than ever. Number 7. Callie Angel, Gravity Rush 2. The next entry is another one that completely goes against the established tone of the game it originated from. I mean, sure, Gravity Rush 2's bright and breezy world is constantly under threat from formless cosmic entities, but there's nothing especially disturbing about the game, on the surface at least. Then there's Callie Angel. Initially introduced as a fashionable and sexy superhero supermodel, Callie is quickly established as one of the game's antagonists, a shallow, self-styled hero who is only interested in the spotlight, and sees the protagonist as beneath her. She has a lot more to her than that, but that's the basic gist of things. And then she transforms. Later in the game, Callie's unnatural regenerative abilities run amok, causing her to twist and expand into a vast, pulsating abomination that latches onto the giant clock tower at the centre of the city. It's up to the gravity-defying protagonist Cat to use her powers to take this titanic terror down, and this is, of course, achieved by attacking the eyes in its many grimacing faces. The most disturbing thing about all of this is that many of those faces resemble the once beautiful Callie. I know that she was smug, duplicitous, and ultimately dangerous, but she didn't deserve this. Number 6. Leviathan, Ultra Kill. It's time to get biblical again, as retro-styled FPS Ultra Kill's locations are based on the 9 circles of hell, and its story concerns the souls of the damned rising into the world. Also, there are robots, which I don't remember being mentioned in my religion class, but then again, I did spend most of my time staring out the window, so I'll give Ultra Kill the benefit of the doubt. In the Ultra Kill campaign, players take on the role of a robot known as V1, and must face a veritable cavalcade of unpleasant enemies, from undead humans and demons to angels and other robots. None are quite as sinister, however, as Leviathan. Encountered in an overflowing river Styx that has become an ocean, Leviathan is a gigantic eel-like creature that is formed of the souls of those who have sunk to the bottom of the tumultuous waters. While difficult to make out fully during gameplay due to its size and quick erratic movements, Leviathan is a very unsettling specimen indeed. With its colossal serpentine form composed of lifeless faces and twisted body parts that make it look like the denizens of Subnautica through a Halloween party. That's without even mentioning the flayed crucifix-impaled corpse on its back. Yes, this thing definitely needs ultra killing, and please ultra kill it as quickly as possible. Number 5. Guardian Ape, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. If you cast your mind back over the rest of this list, you might wonder what the Guardian Ape from Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is doing here. I mean, we've had demonic sea serpents, gigantic pulsating accumulations of fused heads and body parts, and a creature that is basically a hideous mouth on legs. This thing is just a big monkey, right? What's so creepy about it? Well, to that I say, you clearly haven't seen the chilling way in which the Guardian Ape looks around when it notices the protagonist, which is sure to make some primal part of you want to leap behind the sofa, perhaps because of how relatively grounded this creature is. Furthermore, later on in the battle, the Guardian Ape continues to fight after being decapitated, and that just isn't right. This immortal protector of the Lotus of the Valley, which is a flower needed to reach the divine realm, is clearly unwell before our hero even arrives, with a sword sticking out of its head and some very rough dental hygiene going on. And I don't even want to know what might be matted into all that fur. Oh, and then there's the fact that there is a 20-foot long centipede living inside it, because why the heck not at this point, I suppose? Number 4. Mermaid Princess, Rule of Rose. Rule of Rose is a survival horror game for the PlayStation 2 that was developed by a studio called Punchline, but very little about it seems all that funny, least of all the deceptively wholesome sounding subject of this list. In the game, players take on the role of Jennifer, a normal girl whisked away against her will to a mysterious orphanage, where all manner of unsavoury activities are taking place. With only a strange, creepy boy to guide her, and a Labrador called Brown as her only companion, Jennifer must survive the sinister hallways of the orphanage and get to the bottom of all the shady goings-on. One rather formidable bump in the road on this journey is the Mermaid Princess. Resembling a character called Clara, and seemingly the personification of all the abuse Clara suffered, the Mermaid Princess is a pale and sallow wretch with her legs and feet tied together like some mockery of a mermaid's tail and lashed to a pulley system above her bed. With her sunken eyes, her cut and stitched skin, and her propensity to drop screaming from the ceiling and vomit green bile, this is one uncomfortable encounter. One of the most difficult battles in the game, the Mermaid Princess is a tough fight with some very disturbing connotations. Number 3. Warden, The Void. The Void is an extremely dark 2008 first-person adventure game that was developed by Russian studio Ice Pick Lodge. It tells the story of a lost soul trapped in a bizarre lightless realm who must collect colourful life energy at the behest of a faction known as the Sisters, while coming to blows with a faction known as the Brothers. The latter faction offered up plenty of unsettling fare for this list, including the artificially tall Mantid, who has had 1 or 2 body modifications and is suffering from a slight case of impalement, Montgolfer, who is literally a hot air balloon man, and Triant, who is just having a really bad day. We've gone for the sinister fellow known as Warden for our list though, an emaciated and gaunt creature who dangles from the darkness above and whose ribs extend downwards to form a birdcage-like structure beneath him. Players combat this ghoulish, twisted entity by drawing magical glyphs using the mouse, which uses the energy that's been collected to unleash attacks on the Warden's corrupt, swinging form. Mystical glyphs are all well and good, but I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable with some grenades and a good old rocket launcher. Thanks. Number 2. Exposito, Scion of Abjuration, Blasphemous. If there are some lessons to be learned from our forays into the world of disturbing video game bosses, then they are as follows. 2D pixel art style games are capable of throwing up some surprisingly grisly creations. The Souls-like subgenre is absolutely crawling with subquieting abominations, and biblical themes are always a safe bet if you want things to get disturbing. 2019 Souls-like Metroidvania Blasphemous ticks all 3 boxes in this unholy trinity and doesn't disappoint when it comes to unsavoury boss designs. The blood-covered highlight of which is undoubtedly Exposito, Scion of Abjuration, who, to put it plainly, is a gigantic blinded, bleeding infant being held aloft by something in the background. The story goes that this something is actually a Wicca woman who was constructed for the infant Exposito when his birth mother was burned alive for the crime of witchcraft. Blindfolded so that he would not be able to see the brutal execution, Exposito wouldn't stop crying until he was placed into the arms of his new Wicca mother. And now he spends his evenings fighting video game protagonists with his pet human face snake. Oh, and if all that wasn't upsetting enough for you, once Exposito defeats the protagonist, he casually tears him apart like a broken doll. Delightful. And number 1, Obscura, The Evil Within 2. 2017 survival horror sequel The Evil Within 2 continues the grand tradition set by its predecessor of taking protagonist Sebastian Castellanos to some pretty dark places. And these dark places are inhabited by some of the most unpleasant creatures in gaming, one of which takes its inspiration from a somewhat unlikely source. That's right, say cheese everyone, because I'd like to introduce you to Obscura. Created by the villainously psychotic artist Stefano Valentini, Obscura is a combination of stitched together female corpses and an old-style camera obscura with an elongated accordion-like neck. This snap-happy creation stalks through darkened hallways on its 3 shapely legs, emitting disturbing sensual moans before stunning Sebastian with its flashbulb and then finishing the job with some nasty bladed appendages. Combining the disgust and repulsion felt upon witnessing such an obscene creature with the very real and very common fear that many humans harbour, that of having a camera shoved in their faces, was a stroke of evil genius. I don't know what's worse, being impaled by a moaning mass of stitched together corpses, or the fact that I'll definitely look horrible in the photos it takes as it murders me. Just don't put them online, okay?